What's up, airplane collectors? Welcome to a model airplane review. It's your host Ray. In today's video, I'll be reviewing the NG model 1:400 scale Southwest Airlines Boeing 737-700 with the split scimitar winglets. In this video, I'll do an in-depth review of the model and its features, and at the end, I will give my personal opinion about what I think of the model and whether or not I recommend it to other collectors. The box is a small cardboard box measuring at 13 centimeters for length, 13 centimeters tall, and 4 centimeters wide. I will show you around the box now. So there's the front. Here's the bottom. This is the right side, top, left side, and the back side. Included in the box is the model assembled, painted, and ready to display, and a collector rewards program card. I'll give you a quick 360 of the model before I begin my review. The fuselage length is 8.2 centimeters, wingspan is 8.8 centimeters, and from the ground to the top of the vertical stabilizer, this model is 3.2 centimeters tall. Pretty small and accurate to 1:400 scale. This model is made mostly out of die-cast metal. I'll discuss the fuselage first. The nose profile on this model looks really good. Nose shape is correct and accurate. Printed detail is all over the place on this model in the form of the door, the logo, the windows. All of that looks really good, and it seems to be very well done, so no complaints on that. Unfortunately, even though the paint on this model is rather simple, painted detail on this model is where there is fault. The dark blue color along the fuselage and the engines is too dark, so the color needs to be a little bit lighter. Here is a different model from a competitor for reference. The model on the left has the correct blue color that represents the Southwest Heart Blue. However, the model on the right, which is the one I'm reviewing right now, the color is too dark, and that's been an issue on this model and similar releases from NG as of recent. So I'll move down the fuselage now. Everything else looks okay. Molded detail looks good and accurate. Paint to detail, of course, it's got the color issue, but it's applied correctly and well, and printed detail looks pretty good too. Here's the vertical stabilizer. This looks really good. The shape is correct. Molded detail is good in the form of the rudder detail that is defined and good. And colors up here, except for the small blue part on the front and rear, those look fine as well, so no complaints. I'm going to show you the right side of the aircraft, but before I do, I'd like to point out a small thing I noticed here. Here you can see what appears to be an inconsistency in the layering of the red paint. Oh, actually, never mind. That's just a small hair. Sorry about that. Now let's move down to the right side of the aircraft. Everything I've said about the left side can also be said about the right side. Overall, it's great. It's just that blue color is too dark. Moving on to the wings. The wings on this model are pretty nicely detailed. The molded detail in the form of the recessed lines with the control surfaces, those look pretty good. They're clearly defined. The shapes are accurate, so no complaints on that. Printed detail looks good as well. The overwing exits are clearly defined, and this overwing marking here looks good. And painted detail looks good as well. Paint application seems to be consistent throughout. So there's the left wing. Underneath of the right wing here, we got some more hairs going on. Sorry about that, had a quick interruption. But yeah, not as detailed down here, but it still looks pretty good. Molded detail down here looks solid as well. Now, for those scimitar winglets, let's see how they did. So the shape is pretty good. They're nice and sharp at the tips, so you just got to be very careful with them. Details look actually really good with the Southwest logo on the top scimitar. No complaints about that. Angles seem to be in check. However, I do want to... Oh, actually, this one, no. So what I was about to say was that sometimes on NG 737s, on the scimitar winglets, sometimes the bottom or top scimitar have a little bit of a bend to them that doesn't match the correct angle for the bend, and this is definitely one of them. So this can happen. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen. But aside from that, the shape and overall detail on that looks really good. Right from here, we're going to move to the rear of the aircraft. Let me adjust the zoom there. There we go. Rear of the aircraft looks pretty good. Horizontal stabilizers, not much going on back here, but they look pretty good, so no complaints. Let's move down to the APU. APU section looks good. And the underside of the fuselage here looks pretty good as well. Let's take a look at these lines here, or where the stripes meet up. These overall look pretty good. As you can see, the alignment isn't 100% perfect, but it's almost there. So I'll give NG the credit there. They almost got it. Moving on to the engines. The engines in this model are quite nice. The exhaust on this one seems to be bent a little bit upwards. That or the engine itself is bent downwards. It's one of the two, but either way, it looks slightly out of place. Not by much though, so I won't harp on it too much. Once again, the blue color on these engines is a little too dark. It matches the same dark blue color on the fuselage, so that's one thing going for it. But aside from that, the detail on the engines is pretty nice, especially the printed detail. They did do a pretty good job at that. And here is what your fans look like. Those look pretty good as well, painted a nice metallic silver there. So overall, the engines are pretty solid. Okay, never mind. So yeah, the exhaust got bent upwards for sure. Yeah, a little bit surprising to see from NG since they usually don't do this. Moving on to aerial details, this model features antennas and sat domes. On the top of the aircraft, we have one large antenna, even though it's really tiny, but we have one of these large antennas up here. This looks pretty good. If anything, it might be a little bit short. They might have changed the antenna design because I do remember these antennas used to be taller. So if this is inaccurate, please let me know. And here we have a good looking sat dome. That seems to be pretty nice. All of it is attached well and mostly center line with the aircraft from what it looks like. So good job on NG for that. Underneath the aircraft, we get a bit more action with respect to antennas. We have 3 large antennas down here, one on the front end of the aircraft and 2 towards the midsection. These look pretty good. They are not misaligned and they are attached firmly. Now right from here, let's start talking about the landing gear. The landing gear in this model seem to be pretty good. They're actually angled slightly backwards, which finally, NG has had an issue where they angle their 737 main landing gear forwards, but this one appears to be angled backwards, which is accurate and correct, so good thing they did that. The wheels roll smoothly and the detail on the gear seems to be pretty good. I do see a few slight paint chips or inconsistencies on there, so of course the gears aren't perfect, but they're decent. So that's the main gear. They look pretty solid. The nose gear is also pretty good from the looks of it. The wheel also rolls. They're made out of rubber, so that's really nice as well. So overall, a decent job on the landing gear. Like I said, they're not perfect, but they're not terrible. So here's a view at the front of the aircraft. Cockpit window printing looks symmetrical. Vertical stabilizer does seem to be a little bit to the left of the aircraft. Wing flex might be a little bit high, but it's not terrible. Engine clearance looks good. Gear balance looks good. Horizontal stabilizers look good. So we have a decent mix of small imperfections here and there, but overall, it's decent. That's the end of my review. Now time for my personal opinion and recommendation. So this model, in my opinion, is decent. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect. It does have its quality control issues. The thing that messes with me personally the most is that fuselage color. I'm very tolerant on colors, but this is really pushing my limits. Personally, I do favor the NG 737 series mold, but the color is what really messes with me. So my recommendation is, if you want the model, get it. It's got decent quality control. It has its imperfections. So I did highlight those. But it's ultimately up to you. I know for some collectors, the color is more important to them than it is to me, and that might be a deal breaker for them with getting this model. But overall, the model is decent, just the color is really messing with the model. Part of the reason I'm recommending that you get this model instead of anything else is because, well, there really isn't anything else. Only one other competitor has released this aircraft, and it's been long since out of stock since I think it was 2021. And I had that model and it was decent. It still had its imperfections, but at least it had the correct color. You could also get a slightly similar model from a different competitor. This is the Gemini Jets model, but good luck finding that thing at a decent price anywhere. These are really high in value. So ultimately, the decision is yours, and my recommendation is a bit ambiguous on this one. So that's a first for the channel. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have anything you'd like to say down below in the comments, feel free to do that. But that's all I have for you today. Like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more model airplane content. Happy building, happy collecting. Take care of yourselves. See you next time.